Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's so glad to be back with you guys. Welcome again to Candid Conversations with Coach Pam. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I am Pam McNeil, also known as the Teen Transformer, and I am a coach to primarily uh, families of Black college bound middle school and high school students. And so tonight, my conversation with you is going to be about this month of April for high school, college bound seniors. This is the month of decision making. I really am going to be speaking about what happens during this month, and I hope that there are some parents who and students who will be able to take advantage of this conversation this evening. But I really want to let parents who are not yet in that high school senior process have a peek into what it takes to decide among the choices that your student will have amongst colleges that have given them offers of admission. And that's my goal as a coach. My goal is to make sure that our young people have choices when it comes to attending college. And by choices, I mean that more than one school and program has given them an opportunity to attend. So, in particular, because I've been fortunate to have had an Ivy League education, a top tier, most selective undergraduate experience, and have served as 30 plus years as a volunteer at alumni admissions recruiter for my alma mater, which is Wellesley College. I've gotten to see behind the scenes, get a sense of some of the insider um, information and into how these schools make their choices and as to who to admit. And now let's talk first of all about uh, a young person may well have gotten some rejection letters. And I always talk to kids and parents about this whole college selection process from the point of view of the institution. It is totally subjective. Um, I have seen where it makes a difference who's on the admission board for sure, right? Some people advocate for certain attributes, certain elements. They have a soft spot for certain life experiences and whatnot. So it definitely makes a difference who's reading the applications. And ultimately, in particular, for highly selective schools, so the most competitive schools in the country, most of the time it could be said that they could just roll the dice. They could do a lottery and just randomly select students, and all of them would be qualified. So a lot of it has to do with the presentation. Um, so if you're not admitted to your dream school or the school that you've always thought that you were going to attend, do not take it as a personal judgment of you as being less than a good person or a less than qualified or whatnot. It's sort of like the dating, you know, environment. Uh, these kids are also, you guys are also thinking about maybe having a prom date, and um, sometimes this whole competition as to how many uh, offers of admission you can get. I liken it to who wants to get asked to the prom by 20 people, right? You want to get asked to the prom by that ideal person, and at most maybe two or three. But ultimately, you would want to be asked to the prom by somebody that you want to go to the prom with, right? So this whole college selection process should start early on in terms of some of the evaluative um, attributes that I'm going to go over right now, in terms of what are the things that you should be looking at and making comparisons of in this whole college process. And the majority of these, some of these things I'm going to run through, happen much early on. So that's why I particularly want to talk about this in terms of when you're looking at choices of schools, when it comes down to it. I'm going to also talk about like the top five. But these are some of the things that when we start looking at, um, should I go to school A or go to school B or go to school C? When you want to make comparisons, you're going to be talking about these attributes. And so, academic reputation. You should have researched each college's reputation in your chosen field of study. And if you haven't chosen a field of study yet, which is okay, you want to at least across areas of study. So if you think you're going to be a STEM major, or you think you're going to be a liberal arts person, or you think you know for sure that it's going to be somewhere in the humanities or the social sciences, whatever that field of study might be, you want to evaluate the overall academic quality of the institution. Um, Location. You're going to consider the geographical location, the climate, and the distance from home, as these factors will definitely influence your college experience and your living situation. You want to evaluate the campus size and the setting. Determine if you prefer a small, intimate campus or a larger, more bustling environment. Faculty credentials. Evaluate the qualifications and experience of faculty members, as well as their accessibility and commitment to teaching. And what does that mean? That means that sometimes you go to these highfalutin schools that say that they've got, X, Y, and Z on their faculty, and you may supposedly be taking a course with that, high profile professor, but you never have any real interaction with them in a small, intimate setting. There may be teaching assistants that may be really the people that you interact with on a daily. Um, you want to look at the program offerings. Ensure that College A offers the major you're interested in, as well as College B and College C, and provides opportunity for research or experiential learning. Let's say, for example, computer science, which is a very popular major right now. All three, let's say you're looking at three schools. All three schools may offer computer science, but you really need to niche down and look at what that major looks like at each of those three schools. Retention and graduation rates. Investigate the college's graduation and retention rates as indicators of student success and satisfaction. And retention rate means that from freshman year to sophomore year, how many people return? Um, and this is really critical. You have to start looking long term. And what may be attractive to you as a high school senior changes once you're on campus and once you're in the at the school, in the institution. And sometimes some schools are really, really good at attracting folks to the campus, but they're not really good at retaining students once they're there, and they have to do a churn and they start admitting transfer students. So they're really good at, the representation of what it's like to be at their school, but once kids actually get on campus, they realize it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. You may not be thinking this far ahead, but you need to look at job placement and career support. Take a look at the college's career services and the post graduation job placement rates in your field of study. Financial aid and scholarships. I'm going to come back to that in a little more detail, but you're going to definitely want to examine the financial aid packages and scholarship opportunities available. That's going to make your education more affordable. And obviously, tuition and fees. You want to compare not just the cost of attending the school with just the tuition and fees, but also the living expenses, which goes back to location. If you're going to compare school A and school B, but school A is on the East Coast and school B is on the West Coast, their tuition may be and fees may be the same. We know that the cost of attending the school that's on the opposite coast from where you live is going to be much higher, right, than the one that's maybe a little closer. So you want to consider all the expenses of attending that school. Campus facilities. Now, you may not have looked at these very closely when you were just choosing schools, but now it's down to I have these choices. You want to consider the quality of the classrooms, the labs, the libraries, the recreational facilities, and other campus resources. There may be instances where you will be attending school A, they don't necessarily have the labs or the campus resources, and you may have to go off campus to participate in some aspects of your education. That could be a plus because you may be getting access to real life world resources, or it could be a negative because you may have to then add on additional time and expenses, to participate and to get the full value of those resources or facilities. Housing options. You want to explore on campus and off campus housing options, as well as the meal plan offerings. Um, and the student body diversity. I'm primarily talking to Black African American families, and so you want to look and see how many other kids on this campus look like us, but also what is the interaction amongst the other diverse members of the student population, right? And if you're looking, even if you're looking at HBCUs, where you would assume that the majority of everybody looks alike, you also want to look at the diversity geographically, socioeconomically. You want to try to see what are the interactions and what kind of exposure are you going to be getting to people that have had different life experiences. And that one isn't. I'm highlighting that because I think that that's an important reason to go to college, is that you want to be exposed to people who have had a cultural, racial, socioeconomic, and international experience, if possible. You want to look at extracurricular activities. You want to research clubs, organizations, and activities that align with your interests and passions, and also hopefully they will have some things that you are totally unfamiliar with, because again, hopefully college is going to be an experience that's going to open up your opportunity to participate in things that you aren't familiar with quite yet. Athletics. If you're interested in participating in watching sports, consider the school's athletic programs and facilities. Um, Now, I know for some people they're making choices like, oh, I'm going to go to a Big Ten school where I know that there's always going to be, you know, football games and whatnot going on throughout the school year. Consider it, but hopefully that's not like top of your list. You want to look at study abroad opportunities. You may not be thinking about it quite yet, but if at some point you want to study abroad, research the college's international programs and partnerships. And while a school doesn't have to have a particular program set up on their campus that you want to participate in, you want to see how flexible they are with accepting credits from any of these study abroad programs or from an international program. Campus safety is another thing that you want to investigate. The safety and security measures in place on campus and the surrounding areas of these college campuses. If you all were with me a few weeks ago, I had my colleague Nancy Bradford on with me, who's an informed parent, and that is one of her areas of expertise where she talks extensively and has resources on which to evaluate and uh, research each school's campus safety. And then obviously, the social scene is something that you want to consider. And that includes the campus culture, whether it includes Greek life or not, traditions and events. This is one of the next one is one of my uh, factors that's close to my heart, which is the alumni network. Again, you're just coming out of high school. You're probably not thinking much beyond the next 3, 4, 5, maybe years. But if you can, think 20 years from now, think 30 years from now. Um, that's when your alumni network is going to be vitally important. And it's going to be important throughout your whole college and life experience if you choose the right schools. But assess the strength and the size of the college's alumni network, as this can be valuable or invaluable, priceless for networking and job opportunities. I have to say that my alumni work network has helped me find places to live. Um, and in addition to, job and networking opportunities, uh, support groups, long before there were Facebook groups for support, my alumni network had similar kinds of groups where people with similar interests, even outside of work, could come together and exchange resources. And so that's important. Support services, you want to research available support services such as academic advising, tutoring, the mental health resources, and disability accommodations. I can tell you that coming up this Wednesday, I'm going to be on a podcast with my dear friend and colleague, Rod Carter. We're going to be talking about mental health and its importance for college students and for young people in general. But most importantly are these last two factors: visiting the campus, if at all possible. Visit each campus to get a firsthand impression of the atmosphere, facilities, and overall fit. Um, and then the last is just from that visit, along with all of these other information, data points, and factors of information, you're going to have a gut feeling. Trust your instincts and consider which college feels like the best fit for you personally, academically, and professionally. So many of these schools have, during the month of April, have admitted student visitations. And so I highly, 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 highly recommend that if at all possible, you make it your business to go and visit the colleges that you are considering um, in terms of a decision. And so, um, personal story, all throughout high school, I thought I was going to college A. I just knew I was going to college A. I knew the whole history of the school. It had a long history of educating African Americans. It had a long history of women, supporting women's education. It had all of the requisite um, areas of study. Its academic reputation was high. I had an interest in music as an aside, not as a major, but it had a conservatory. There were just so many things that, and I knew current students there. I knew some alumni from there. Uh, it was supposedly in the suburbs of a major city, which was one of my requirements. I just knew that was where I was going to school. And then I got admitted. But I also got admitted to three other schools that I was considering. Um, and so, well, actually, I decided early on that one of the three other schools was not a place that I was even going to entertain going to. So I immediately let that one go. But the other two schools, I said, okay, well, let me go visit because I had not visited any of these campuses. And so, long story short, the school I chose to visit, the school I chose to attend was not that one that had been top of my list for 4 years, but my alma mater now is my alma mater, which I hadn't even really seriously given it consideration. But because I went to visit, and from that campus visit, it was it was it was almost like a soul to soul kind of connection. I set foot on the campus and everything started checking the boxes, and all of the experiences, all of the things that I just really addressed was like, yeah, this is great. Oh, wow, this is great. Oh, things that I hadn't even really thought about in great depth. It's like, oh, wow, this feels great. So, I think that it's vitally important that you visit a college campus as an admitted student. And in particular, when you're on campus, These are some things that I suggest that you evaluate to help make that decision. You want to look at the campus atmosphere. You want to pay attention to the overall vibe and the energy on campus. Observe how students interact with each other and whether they seem engaged and happy. And even if they're not, there may be disgruntled over something. How are they able to express themselves, and what seems to be the responses, right, of administration, faculty, staff, or whatever, when there is an area of concern. And by being on campus, you can also maybe just pick some of that up from picking up the campus newspaper, which, if you're not able to visit, you might be able to get a copy of that online. You want to, if at all possible, visit classes. Attend a class or a lecture in your intended major to get a sense of the teaching style, the class size, and the student faculty interaction. You want to definitely check out the dorms, all the housing options, and assess their quality, location, and any possible amenities. If you can, check out the dining options, sample the food at the dining halls and the other on campus eateries, because you're checking out the quality, the variety, and the accessibility of meal options. I haven't met too many college students that are really, really singing the praises of all the dining options, but it's only when you get to school and then you start making comparisons on your campus versus some other campus that you really start to understand whether you've got good options or not. Facilities and resources. You want to visit the library, the computer labs, the rec centers, and other facilities to gauge their quality, their usefulness, their availability for you academically and in your personal life. If at all possible, attend club meetings. Get a sense of the extracurricular activities you're going to attend, club meetings, organizational events, or athletic games to get a feel for the campus's extracurriculars and determine if they align with your interests. Support services. You want to investigate the availability and quality of the support services that the school offers, such as their academic advising, career services, mental health, and if you require any disability accommodations, what do those look like? Again, we talked about some of these. Again, campus safety. You want to assess the security measures in place on campus, such as the emergency call boxes, the blue boxes. If you've ever visited a college campus today, most of them have the blue boxes, which are emergency call boxes. You want to see whether the paths are well lit and the presence of security personnel, whether they have ride along um, or any kind of, uh, what do you call them? I'm drawing a blank. Like little vans to get you across campus late at night or whatever? Or is it all on foot? Again, you'll be able to see in person if you go to visit what the student body diversity looks like. But most importantly, overall, you'll be able to see how current students interact with each other. Is everybody with their head down with no interaction, which very well may be an extension of our post pandemic sort of interaction? Or do you see people really talking and engaging, in hallways and dining halls, um, on campus pathways, um, or during extracurricular activities? And you also want to visit the campus, but also look at the surrounding areas to explore the surrounding town or city, to note the availability of resources, activities, transportation options, and overall atmosphere. For us as Black families, how far do you think it's going to be to get to a hair salon or barbershop? How far is it going to be to get to, maybe uh, a soul food restaurant or a place of worship that will make you feel comfortable? These are all things you will really get a sense of once you're on campus. And if those things aren't readily visible, you'll be able to really talk to a student who'll be able to give you a greater sense of uh, what that really looks like and what the options are. But again, it comes down to your gut feeling. Trust your instincts and consider how comfortable and at home you feel on campus. Now, obviously, as a parent, if you're listening, and even as a prospective student, um, a lot of times it's going to come down to cost. And so, in these last few minutes, I want to talk about how you might evaluate the financial aid packages that you're going to be looking at: College A, College B, College C. And you may not be able to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. If you are applying to a school that is all financial need based, in other words, they're strictly looking at what your FAFSA says as a parent, a family contribution would be, and they're really strict to that. Um, that's going to be hard to compare to a school that may not be financially need based only, and they may offer merit scholarships, right? So, regardless of your financial need or your parent family contribution, they may offer you, some extra on top based on merit. Or you may have an athletic scholarship to one school versus a non athletic scholarship to another school. So you want to make sure that when you're assessing financial aid packages, that you're able to compare apples to apples. And if not, you're taking into consideration the various factors. Okay. So, for example, if you have an athletic scholarship to one school and maybe just a financial needs based scholarship to school B, obviously, if you get injured at school A, where your education is being funded by a athletic scholarship, if you get injured and are not able to play or participate in that sport anymore, you may lose all your funding or most of your funding. So you need to make sure that you're able to understand what it all means within your packages. But here are a few things that you should also consider if you have an opportunity to, when you have multiple packages, you should try to circle back with each financial aid office and see if you're able to negotiate, because what you may not be aware of is that you do sometimes have some flexibility and to negotiate your financial aid package. So if you make a call to the financial aid office, and I recently was counseling a family on this very thing, these are the questions that you want to ask. All right, so if you're ready with the pen and pad, you might want to jot these down. Are there any additional scholarships or grants available? You want to inquire if there are any other institutional or departmental scholarships, grants, or aid programs that your student may qualify for, which are not included in the initial financial aid package. This one is really, really important. And many times people don't realize how important this is. Is the current financial aid package that you're looking at, is it renewable and consistent for all 4 years? There are some schools who are notorious for front loading. So they'll give you all this aid as a high school student. And it looks like, oh, this is great. I'm going to come here and, it'll be great. But second, third, fourth year, nothing. Or comparatively, it appears to be nothing. And so then you're kind of stuck. So you want to ask if the scholarships, grants, or other aid components are renewable annually, and if the amounts are expected to remain consistent throughout the college career. Also, inquire about any specific requirements or conditions for maintaining the financial aid. Usually it's a grade point average, right? But you want to ask because you want to know what are the conditions for these dollars. Also, you want to know, how does the financial aid package change if our family's financial situation changes? Understand how the changes in your financial situation, such as a job loss or increased income, might affect the financial aid package in future years. What are the terms and conditions of the loans included in the package? If it includes loans, ask about the interest rates, repayment terms, and any grace periods or deferment options. This will help you understand the long-term financial implications of accepting any loans. Can they provide you a detailed breakdown of the total cost of attendance? Request a comprehensive estimate of all expenses. Um, Sometimes the health care is something that you don't think about, but they expect that's one of the fees. And what does that look like? And by asking all these kinds of questions, you as parents and you as students can gain a better understanding of each college's financial aid package and make a more informed decision about which college offers the best value and affordability. So, with that, your head may be swimming. Hopefully, you're not yet a high school senior. So, this is not, the month where you have to consider all these things. But if you're not yet a high school senior and you've been listening in, this gives you some sense of preparation long term to start thinking. And these are the kinds of things that it's good to know now. So, when you start looking at colleges um, in the coming years, if you have an opportunity to visit a campus, even as a middle school student, even as a ninth or 10th grader, you look around now with a different set of lenses. So, with that, I'm going to sign off for tonight. I started out this evening and I neglected to wish anyone celebrating a happy Resurrection Sunday, but I also wanted to say happy spring. The weather has taken a turn here in the Washington, D.C. area. It actually was cold today, but spring is here. And again, I look forward to these opportunities for us to chat. Um, I do want to remind folks, I don't think I've been on since we did a date change, but we are going to be having a Parent Empowered for College Bound Success virtual summit on April 21st at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And so there's registration for that summit. And I hope that you all can see this. It is at bit.ly/April Virtual Summit. Again, that's bit.ly/April Virtual Summit. And with that, I wish you all a good evening. And I'll see you again here next week when will I anticipate that I'll have a great guest with me.